Hi, and welcome to Tuesday Talkies, where we discuss the items in the music business that are important to you. I'm Peter Schwinge, and joining me today are my fellow co-hosts, Sam Tall, the Duke, Ayesha Adamo, and joining us for the first time, Stephanie Carlin. If there's something you'd like to chime in about, let us hear your thoughts in the comments below. Today, we're going to discuss artificial intelligence, celebrity avatars, and the future of the technological artist. Spotify is countersuing an indie label for massive streaming fraud and millions of fake accounts. Perfection versus powerful perseverance. It's a nice alliteration. How can you reimagine and invent the kind of artistic world you want to be in? And why should artists be using their voice to elevate the world? Let's get to it. So last week, Dutch broadcaster VPRO, along with NPO 3FM and NPO Innovation, held its first AI song contest. The results were interesting, to say the least, with some of the songs being rather catchy. But with AI, there's always more to it when it comes down to copyright and who owns the song. There is, at this time, still a lot of personal input when it comes to creating pieces of music with AI. But what effect is this going to have on the long term? Let's turn to Sam Tall with his take on this. Sam.
Hey, Peter.
How you doing?
That's good. So I thought this was interesting. The thing that I see a lot about when it comes to AI and music and the use of AI as a production tool is that perhaps at some point it's going to make songwriters obsolete, or music producers obsolete, or even artists themselves, human singers, human musicians obsolete. And I just don't buy that. The thing that really drives for me is that it's a tool, just like anything else, just like arpeggiators, just like synthesizers, sample libraries, all the sort of music synthesis that has been, part and parcel of advanced music for decades. This is just a new iteration of it on a more technologically advanced level. And we have to look at it that way. We can't think that it's going to supplant musicians.
Well, but the drum machine of the 80s did have that kind of effect. And that's one of the, when we start talking about that. But here's the other thing that's on the side, where I've seen some articles that were talking about where for brands, or ad agencies, where it's like, hey, we identified these parameters for our, soap company, and just type in the parameters and they can come up with a jingle, a 30-second jingle that works for different spots. And then they hit the remix button and it can generate 10 different versions.
I mean, yeah, they could go ahead and do that, but is it going to be as compelling as a pop song that is recognizable by the audience? I think that's really where the differentiator is. Already we're talking about the ad agencies and brands and even television shows and films that are using production library music, stock music, stuff that costs well under, just at most like a couple $100 to use in a national ad campaign. There's a certain efficiency of scale that comes along with that kind of a thing. And so I think that's sort of a race to the bottom that I'm happy to let the AI take. And as a, human culture generation machine, the creators in music, in film, in television, in art of all stripes are really good at adaptation. And I'm convinced that we're going to find ways to stay one step ahead of the computers in this race. And you know what? If a brand is intent on spending $50 to, soundtrack their ad, so be it. I'm not going to subject my clients to underpayment for something, whether it's, viable or not for them is not my concern anymore.
Right. And an interesting thing is also intellectual property, which you mentioned about the copyright. But now, even taking this one step further, is the celebrity avatars. And Sherry Hugh reported in her Water and Music blog, where she wrote, writing about Travis Scott and Grimes are working with software developers to build their digital doubles, often with gaming context in mind. So basically, we're seeing like the fully digital likeness of what Daft Punk started in real life years ago, and Tupac holograms. So now we have the digital likeness and more intellectual property. So you can create a Grimes can come up with an AI song and just use her digital likeness for something.
I mean, how is that any different from the way that cartoon characters, Disney characters are licensed out for brand relationships, the way that the Muppets are currently in use by Facebook for their Portal product, the way that, we have merchandise around Cartoon Network, characters. And I don't see it as that different. The only difference being that it's connected to a human being, but so are those cartoons. Somebody designed that, somebody owns the rights to those images, and somebody owns the rights to the images of a human person as well. It's the person themselves, and we call that a likeness. So I don't see it as that different. I see, there's the argument that perhaps this gives more opportunity for a celebrity to appear in multiple places at once, makes it more accessible to have their participation in a campaign because they don't have to be physically present. The turnaround time can be shorter, the cost can be lower. Great. I think that's like a value add in a lot of ways, and it's not going to necessarily, negate the value of having a real person in the flesh. We still go to concerts. We have, we still go to the theater for Broadway plays. SpongeBob on Broadway was a huge success. Doesn't stop being a success just because we have SpongeBob on television,
And we have Frozen on Broadway, Frozen, the animated series, and a lot of it comes down to
hugely successful franchises.
And it also comes down to the actors and actresses that do the voice talent, and they influence their character into it. So there is that personal touch to it.
Well, and I'll say too, to that point, like Travis Scott, as a person, can have a conversation with somebody or present himself on a live stream, for example. But is he going to voice act an avatar, or is that going to be strictly for musical performance purposes? So it's not a one-to-one replacement.
Mm-hmm. So let's take this into the real world now and talk about some of the news with real people and real consequences and real issues. You sent me over to this article, and I happened to catch it, this Billboard article, which was very interesting, and something that's been going on since the fall of last year. The title of the article is Spotify Countersues Indie Label Alleging Massive Streaming Fraud and Millions of Fake Accounts. So the lead-in was that Sosa Entertainment founder Jake Noakes claimed the streaming service failed to pay royalties on over 550 million plays. Now Spotify says he designed a scheme to game the system. All right, we've heard about the gaming the system in the past, but there's more to this. And before we get into this, I want to give like a brief backstory on it. And
yeah, you're going to have to set this up.
Right, and by brief, it's still rather in-depth. So let's go back. Let's take the Wayback Machine into November of last year. He filed a lawsuit against Spotify for over $1 billion for failure to pay royalties on the 550 million streams through his company, Pro Music Rights, which they state is a performing rights organization, and claimed to have a 77.4% market share based on musical works, with the rights to license about 2 million works from artists, including A$AP Rocky, Wiz Khalifa, Pharrell, Young Jeezy, Nipsey Hussle, 2 Chainz, Migos, Gucci Mane, Fall Out Boy. The list goes on. And if you just do a Google search, and you can find this, it's all over Billboard, Music Business Worldwide, plenty of other sites, Yahoo. So this is something that's been going on for a while. He also claims that Merlin, which is a European global digital rights agency, wrongfully terminated its relationship with the label before recommending that a number of other streaming platforms, including Deezer, SoundCloud, Google Play, Saavn, and Vivo, also remove Sosa's catalog due to what Merlin itself is now describing, quote, fraudulent streaming activity. So to note is Merlin sold an equity stake in Spotify when Spotify floated on the stock exchange last April. Merlin's shares were believed to be worth over $100 million when the transaction was completed. Sosa alleges that the removal of its catalog from Spotify ensured that it didn't get to participate in the sale, which it says would have seen it receive tens of millions of dollars. So that's November. We're going to fast forward to March, when they filed an antitrust lawsuit against the quote-unquote music cartel, which includes Digital Media Association, National Religious Broadcaster Music License Committee, Radio Music License Committee, the National Association of American Wineries, and the Television Music License Committee. It's a lot to say there. He's gone after pretty much the entire industry. In an article on Music Business Worldwide, he stated, quote, they have to explain why they are boycotting pro music rights and fixing prices for performance licenses. He adds, we already sued Apple, Amazon, Google, YouTube, Spotify, 7 Digital, Deezer, iHeartMedia, Rhapsody, and SoundCloud in a New York federal court for copyright infringement, and they too have to tell the public why they are refusing to deal with pro music rights. And that's a quote. Now, Spotify stated in Billboard the other day that Sosa, quote, designed a scheme to artificially generate hundreds of millions of fraudulent streams in order to manipulate Spotify's system to extract undeserved royalties at the expense of hardworking artists and songwriters. The filing, which is supported by screenshots of messages allegedly between him and a bot farmer, and charts that show streams on his music go up from 0 to hundreds of thousands in a matter of days, also alleges that Noak directed the bot farmer to create millions of fake accounts and change the names of the songs in his catalog to closely resemble those of established hit songs. Sam, there's a lot to unpack there, and I feel like I should just burn the whole suitcase. What's going on?
So I've heard from a number of different people that they're confused as to what even this character is all about and what his end game is, what his hopeful intent is. I mean, he's suing DSPs, he's suing music rights organizations that he claims are locking him out. I don't know too much personally, but I have had some side conversations over Facebook DM with Jake in the past. And he doesn't seem too concerned about the consequences. And he also doesn't seem too concerned about the cost of handling all this. I'll tell you one thing. We know at least one other shrewd business person who finds great value in the volume of negative press keeping the name on everybody's lips. Mm-hmm. Not naming any names, but I think we can all make some inferences. It's a winning strategy as far as publicity is concerned. And if that's the angle, I get it. Pro Music Rights claims to have signed up a bunch of clients pretty quickly and repeatedly during the course of all this sort of like media firestorm. And they operate on a sort of a TuneCore model in that you pay a fixed fee and you keep 100% of your royalties. Mm-hmm. Look, it's not a bad business model. I just think it's really bad ethics. But we'll let the courts decide if it's actually civil or criminal action. I think Spotify's got an easy win if they can prove fraudulent activity, and that just shuts the whole thing down, and he loses every chip he ever bought.
One thing to note is when I mentioned he was talking about the cartel, and one was the National Religious Broadcast and Music Licensing Committee, and also they just struck a deal. It was in March when that lawsuit was filed, and it was a month later they just struck a deal. So there are things happening, and what I can say is, yes, if he's going after streaming services for not paying or paying enough fair rate, that's an ongoing battle, and yes, the creators should definitely be paid more. This process, though, it's going to unravel more, and how far down the rabbit hole is this going to go?
I wish I knew, because if there's a victorious resolution for Pro Music Rights or Sosa Entertainment at the end of this, I wish I could see into the future and copy it myself. But I don't think that's exactly where this is going. I don't think that's what's gonna end up happening. And I think it's a pretty quick way to get blacklisted by an entire industry just by being young and naive and litigious all at once. It doesn't earn you very many favors. Mm-hmm.
It's School of Hard Knocks. You can find out that way. So thank you, Sam, for your insights on that. It's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds over the next week for however long this is going to go. Once it gets tied up in the court system, it's going to be really interesting. So,
but I'll tell you what, I have needed new drama entertainment You know, I'm kind of like wearing thin on the stuff that's interesting on Netflix and Disney Plus and everything else. So if this can happen over the next couple of weeks, it'll keep me pretty entertained. So I'd appreciate it if Spotify and Pro Music Rights would really kind of like get to it for my sake.
Maybe they can make a documentary. This could be the Tiger King of the music industry.
I will back that. I will put my money into the Kickstarter for that.
Fantastic. All right. So next up we have the Duke, and the Duke is back. He's going to talk about petering perfection versus powerful perseverance. Take it away, sir. How are you?
I am blessed. That was very interesting what you guys just talked about. Yeah, that was interesting stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it made me feel like it's like a video game, and it's just equals dollars instead of like gems or something.
Mm-hmm. So tell us what's been on your mind this week.
What's been on my mind this week? Same thing has been on my mind last week. It's just being, present. You know what I'm saying? Just enjoying life. Just appreciating the blessings that is life. Because that's really all it is. Everything else is just like very superfluous. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. And I love this topic that you're going to be talking about, like perfection versus powerful perseverance. I love the alliteration, but there's that big difference. It's like get started, persevere, keep going, or like trying to be perfect. And tell us what you're thinking about that.
I see a lot of people, a lot of artists, a lot of people come to me for whatever reason. I think I've been doing this, I guess, long enough that people look up to me in some capacity, and they ask me my opinion of things, and how is this going to get plays, or how am I going to get this to do? And it's like, that shouldn't be your goal. You should create things and then release them and create and enjoy the creative process of it. A lot of people get stuck on, I got to make this perfect so I get this million plays, so that I blow up, so I make this money, so I'll be happy. And that's just not the equation. You know what I'm saying? The equation really is like create, enjoy creating, let it go, and let's move on to the next meal. We can't sit and eat breakfast all day. We have to move to lunch eventually. And I think a lot of people get stuck in, cutting up bananas and eating cereal. We'll never get to dinner that way. So, that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like that. Just get started, and that's one of the toughest parts is that people that are saying, oh, it has to be perfect to be out there, whether you're starting a blog, whether you're starting a video series, whether you're starting a song, it's just every time you're going to improve and improve. And for us, like this is our third show of this. And in years, we're going to look back and we're going to see how polished and refined it is at that point. And we're going to look back and say, that was scrappy, but that was awesome because we were doing it. So the thing is about comparing. Don't compare yourself to others that have been at this for a while. Just what can you do in that particular day to do something better?
That's it, man. You know what I mean? Get the distortion on your guitar, but don't worry about being Black Sabbath. You know what I'm saying? Just play the chord and just keep it moving.
I mean, the Beatles, you think all that stuff was super planned? That was a lot of mistakes.
It was a lot of mistakes, but also they had George Martin, and he booked the right musicians. So it was, made it a little bit faster. But I also feel like, back in the days, I mean, like, kids growing up now, they'll have no idea of this. I mean, though it's still used a little bit. But say if I have a signal chain, well, some people don't know what an audio signal chain is. But if I want to EQ your vocal, if I want to compress your vocal, back in the days, you'd have to patch that. You'd have to patch it all up, and that would take time to patch it. Now you just put the plugin in it, you know what I mean? Or even better, you have your presets and it has all the plugins in it. So it's like, that's the age we live in. We live in the digital age. Just throw your preset on it, adjust a little bit, and just keep it moving. That's my motto, and at this time.
I love it. And the thing with producers, songwriters, like you're constantly looking for, oh, I have to buy this plugin bundle or X. It's like, hey, because they don't feel stock plugins are going to do a good enough job for them. Listen, an EQ is an EQ. Yes, that plugin bundle that you're going to buy, yeah, it's going to be a little more fine-tuned. It's going to have some other resonance. it's going to sound a little bit better, but you can still like record and mix down a song completely with stock plugins and make it sound good. That comes from your creativity.
That's facts. And I think it's it's a self-esteem thing. It's the same thing as your physical appearance. If you can just appreciate the fact that you are one of one, a beautiful creature of the earth, you don't have to compare yourself to whoever, it's just you, you know what I'm saying? And I think that also is our society of like breast implants and butt implants and all stuff like that. It's like something's not right when you look in the mirror, and that's self-esteem thing. And I think the same thing can be applied to your music or your music videos, or it's just like you said, man, EQ's the EQ. It's there for a reason, but just keep it moving. It's like appreciate what you're doing and keep it going.
Make some mistakes, learn, get better, and keep doing it. So I love that. Persevere, just consistency, and just go do it. Thanks, sir. And hope you have a great week. So next up, Ayesha. Ayesha, yes. Where are you? There you are.
I'm here.
How you doing?
I am good. How are you, Peter?
Good. Just getting everything in place, making a move soon, opening new doors to new adventures. And you're going to be seeing a new background in a couple weeks. So it's going to be a new studio.
But you got to keep the payphone. You got to keep the payphone.
The payphone stays. So, you were talking about, there's the quarantine, and we're on week whatever. It's like,
who knows what week it is? Nobody knows.
Yeah, exactly. Things are starting to open up, but you refer to this as a hiccup in life. And, some of the things that you were talking to me about, off screen before, was like, how can we use this time to reimagine and invent the kind of artistic world we want to be in moving forward? And I think this is a perfect lead-in from what the Duke was talking about, is like persevere. So, let's get your take on this.
Well, yeah, well, I differ with the Duke on breakfasts. I feel like we can't eat breakfast all day. I've done it. But other than that, no, it's totally true. Like, this is a wonderful time for us. And we have this tremendous opportunity right now. Well, all the balls are up in the air to take this moment of suspense and see where we want to land, and think about what kind of world we want to create as artists, or as, people who aren't artists, who are, supporting the artists in the music industry. How can we create the kind of environment that puts forth the art that we want to have moving forward, and the kind of community that we want to have moving forward? Today, it's actually a kind of a special day for me, because my acting teacher passed away from COVID last month, and today would have been his 98th birthday. And he was teaching right up until quarantine. He was that kind of person, the kind of person I sure want to be. And something he did in the early 1960s was start this thing called the American Place Theater. And it became really an amazing thing. You can actually find out more about Win Handman and the American Place Theater in this Netflix documentary, It Takes a Lunatic. And that's a super inspiring documentary as far as these things go, because it highlights this moment in time where, okay, he had been in World War II, he had come back, he'd studied acting, but now what? All the, things are in the air. Can we take a moment just to absorb what's going on around us, to absorb, this moment where, the seats of the universe are changing, and the guard is changing, and can we just experience it and see what we want to come next, and see who we want to be in this world that's coming, because it's going to be different. A lot of the businesses, in New York that were open are closed now, permanently. So what kind of new New York do we want to make? And that applies to every city and every town and to every community. What do we want to make of our community moving forward?
And that's right. Community is such the key word. And one of the things I've seen during the quarantine is within different sectors in different industries and geographical locations and what area of New York, what borough you live in, or what areas that the Slack groups and communities just helping each other out. And then you have the artistic community, the music community, the nightlife community, all, coming together, join forces. Like, how can we help support the businesses, the musicians? And these kind of rallying cries is what helped to pass legislation for the gig economy. And the strength of those communities coming together to have a voice. And, and I think, something about like the community and having a voice is really important. And that's something going forward is something that is going to be powerful.
I agree. And I think we're going to be finding our new voice together, whatever that is. And in order to find that voice, we really have to listen. We have to listen to the people around us, but to our own inner voice and see where that's telling us to go, because there might be gold to be found if we can just get quiet enough to hear where we should make our next step.
Takes a step to land on the moon. It takes a step to walk out the door, to open a new door, to walk into the open. And it's going to take just one step after another step after another step. Thank you, Ayesha. That is fantastic.
Thank you.
I hope you have a great week. But we're talking about voices, and I'd like to invite up Stephanie Carlin, musician, mentor, guide. She's joining us for the first time, and she's got a powerful voice. She's got a lot to say, and she's going to be focusing on the career success, using your voice to make a difference in the world. Stephanie, welcome. How are you?
I am unmuted, and I am so happy to be here, Peter. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you could make it from all the way from wherever you are.
I am on Eastern Long Island, so I'm not too far.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I really want to expand on what Duke said. I want to expand on what Ayesha said about these voices and listening to them. It's clear the old way isn't supposed to work right now. That's what's clear to me. It's clear it's time to restructure and that the world is new. And for many, this has been a crisis, and we're all in different spaces of this crisis. And, Ayesha, you said to take the time to listen to what this is teaching us. And sometimes when those voices are there and we listen, there are a lot of lies that we tell ourselves and trick ourselves into. I believe all artists want to change the world, and successful artists do change the world. So look at any successful artist: Lady Gaga, Led Zeppelin, Kanye, Radiohead, Nina Simone, Michael Jackson, even fucking Britney Spears, right? Every artist changes the world. And if their intention was conscious or not to change the world, may not be, but they change the world. And I really like discovering with artists and creators and makers the lies we tell ourselves. So a couple of my favorite lies are like garden variety lies, like I don't have enough time is one of the lies we tell ourselves. Like that just means you don't want to do it. Or one of the other lies is like convincing yourself no one's going to pay for your work, which I think is a worthiness issue within yourself. But then there are like the deeper lies, the unspoken lies, like I'm not worthy of success, or I don't deserve to be listened to. But my favorite lie is the one where we play it cool and we say, well, my art is just my passion, man. And, it's cool if someone else likes it, and it's all good if they don't. I call BS on that. I really think that underneath everything, every artist, every creator, every maker yearns and desires to alter and elevate the world. But we have inherited conversations from our parents or inherited conversations from the world that train and teach us that it's not possible. And I think we tell ourselves these lies to protect ourselves from disappointment, and we'll do anything to protect ourselves from disappointment. What do you think about that?
And I love the fact of like you get inside your head. If you keep telling yourself that you're not good enough, you're not successful enough. It's like think of it as somebody growing up. It's like a family member or a friend saying, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, and how it affects that person later in their life. If you're telling yourself that, that's no different than like listening and believing somebody else telling you that.
And that's what we do. We absorb other people's truths as our own unknowingly. And it takes work to seal ourselves off from other people's untruths and take our own stand. And it's so scary to take that stand. I mean, you risk being laughed at, you risk being scoffed at, you risk being the butt of the joke for infinite internet trolls if you actually take a stand and say, this is what my art is for.
And I like that is one of the things that, I look at it as going back with Duke, it's like, get your music out there. I always feel like it's like the world deserves to hear your creations, and it's art. And you might be holding yourself back. Somebody's going to appreciate this. If you're getting out there and you're saying, I want to talk to somebody, I want to use my voice, I want to try to influence, I want to try to motivate, I want to try to inspire, you're not going to be able to come up and say one sentence that's going to inspire an entire world. It's going to be, you inspire one person, you can inspire one more person. When you start realizing you're not to try to change the world by changing by influencing or the entire populace. It's like you start with one person at a time, and if you can help, and that helps you with your voice, more practice and getting better.
Really brilliant. And I'll just say three prongs to ride off of that. Like, number one is just acknowledge to yourself that you're out to change something and be that vulnerable with yourself. And then be prepared to do just that. Prepare yourself to be laughed at, prepare yourself to be scoffed at, prepare yourself for people to ignore you. And then number three, in finding your tribe of people who want to elevate what you want to elevate, pull for a no from people, pull for rejection, pull for people to ignore you, pull for a failure. Welcome 60% of your conversations with people being no's, and get excited to hear that no instead of avoiding it and running from that disappointment. It'll bring a lot of power.
And exactly, you learn from your mistakes and you keep going, and it makes you a better person. And things like, once you learn that, I realize I'm going to screw more things up during a broadcast than I will get right. But hopefully the things I get right are good. And impactful. So thank you, Stephanie. It was fantastic. Thank you for coming aboard, and hopefully you'll have a great week, and hopefully we'll have you back soon. So just in closing, we're all going through it right now. And Winston Churchill stated, if you're going through hell, keep going. I like to say nothing gets the synapses firing like a good challenge. To emphasize what the Duke, Ayesha, and Stephanie have said, right now, it is the perfect time to take account of your career. Look at what's important to you. Focus on something you've been meaning to get to. Reassess what success means to you. Revise your short-term and long-term plans. Clean up your digital house. Look at what is right in front of you and at your fingertips. Those who dig in deeper at this moment are the ones who will prepare themselves for the best opportunities once this subsides. Get off your socials. Stop complaining and replying to everything if it is not going to have a positive effect on your career. Stop wasting your own time. This is your life, your career, your opportunity. Think of it as a reset button and use it wisely. And that's something to think about. And that's it for today. Thank you all for tuning in. If you find this interesting and helpful, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to be alerted about our new shows. You can also find more on musicindustrycity.com and on your preferred podcast player. Thank you again to our hosts, Sam, Ayesha, the Duke, and Stephanie. Have a wonderful day, and see you next time. Peace.